So with Path of Exile 2.0.5 Return of the Ancients live reveal update happening in just a few days on May 7th, and with GGG teasing us with a bunch of different teaser trailer videos, and also with them sort of hinting at one of the largest patches for Path of Exile 2 since launch, I want to give my predictions for what I think we might be seeing coming up. So the first and most obvious one is the Endgame Overhaul. And obviously based on the first teaser that we've gotten, that sort of teases we're going to get some sort of endgame mechanic or some sort of difference in what we currently have in the Infinite Atlas system. And my prediction for what I think we'll get is some sort of biomes and boundaries for each area, sort of like, and so instead of it being completely an Infinite Atlas, people like myself and other players were experiencing, where we would just endlessly traverse the Infinite Atlas without any objectives and that sort of stuff. I think they'll try and tackle those issues and create like separate biomes and areas that you can sort of do, and those will be part of a larger quest or larger objective in order to reach sort of the Pinnacle Bosses or perhaps the new Pinnacle Boss. And obviously alongside the Infinite Atlas or the new Atlas, I think we're going to get a completely overhauled Atlas skill tree. This is going to be, I think, changing the way that you play each map quite a bit, whether it increases pack size or makes mobs harder for more reward and that sort of stuff. And I also think that they're going to adjust or at least change up the league mechanic Atlas skill trees for each of the leagues that we currently have, especially with the core leagues. And I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I think the Infinite Atlas is going to be sort of a smaller version of what it currently is, and we're going to have some specific biomes that we probably need to complete. That's going to lead up to some sort of boss fight or allowing us to get at the skill tree based on completion of those biomes. And the next one, and one that I have a slightly off the cuff prediction for, is the core mechanics reworks. And now this is obviously based on a lot of the teasers that we are getting currently. They do seem to be hinting at reworks to the current core mechanics that we have. So this is stuff like Reach, Delirium, Expedition, and Ritual mechanics. Now, one of the things that's obvious from these teasers that we have been getting recently in relation to these core mechanics is that they clearly want to expand on each of these core mechanics, whether that be in terms of the story that they're giving it. Like, they've obviously developed and put time and effort into creating trailer teaser videos for each of these mechanics, and it seems like they're all attached to some sort of NPC, so they'll have their own storylines, objectives probably, and that's probably one of the ways that we'll probably end up getting the skill points on our Atlas passive skill tree for these. And one of the ways I think that they're actually going to change these mechanics quite a bit, and especially quite a bit in comparison to Path of Exile 1, is I think that they're actually going to try and combine some of the core mechanics with other previous mechanics or current small minor mechanics in the game. So what do I mean by that? Well, in the Expedition trailer that they dropped for the teaser, it seemed like the Expedition mob had some sort of sentinel globe around it, top of it there was some sort of blue orb shining, and in the Delirium one we quite clearly see a wisp in the area also. So I think that what they're going to do is, with at least most of the mechanics, they're going to try and combine it with another mechanic. Or like the example I gave, the Expedition mechanic itself is probably going to get the sentinel stuff attached to it, and that's going to enhance that mechanic in some sort of way. Now, how that ends up happening, I don't really know. I think this is kind of going to be the trend with all the core league mechanics. In order for them to enhance them and make them different from Path of Exile 1, they're going to do some sort of combining of mechanics and making them feel totally different than they do in Path of Exile 1. Now, also, I think the reward structure is going to be changed quite a bit. For example, Expedition right now just feels very dull and boring in type reward structure that it gives. Now, I think that they can do better and try and make it completely different from Path of Exile 1's reward structure. So for example, they've taken a lot of the stuff from Path of Exile 1, like light oils, they brought a fresh coat of paint and just made it drop from Delirium and given it a new name, a new icon and that sort of stuff. I think that they need to work on giving us completely different new rewards that we haven't seen before in ways to upgrade our character and get us more player power. I think that's going to be a big one, and I think this is going to be sort of the biggest thing about this league alongside the end game changes. I think the core mechanics being reworked, they're going to feel totally different new classes. So in terms of a new class, I think that we're probably going to get the duelist, and I think that we're going to get sword weapon type with those. Now, I know a lot of people have been speculating whether it's going to be Shadow, maybe Templar, but I do think that there is at least going to be one new class, and I think that's most likely going to be the Duelist, and that's based off a lot of stuff that Jonathan has said in the past in terms of him wanting to have swords before the game had launched in 1.0, and we know that that's probably going to happen in December, considering Exile Con is in November and something to announce for that. So with that in mind, and with this potentially being the last update for Path of Exile 2 before the 1.0 launch, I think that they need swords in the game. And not only that, I think they're going to add the duelist alongside it, as they do with all the class updates. And I think, as well as the new class itself, I think they're going to also give us some new ascendancy. Now, we know there's been some leaked images of some ascendancies. We've had the Wild Speaker and Arcane Archer. I think they will be coming to this league. And I think alongside that, and I'm hoping they're going to add one or two more. Not sure what they could be, but I am hoping that we do get at least a few new ascendancies. And again, was my previous point with the launch coming in December, hopefully, and 1.0 launching then. I think that they need to have at least all the current classes that they do have in the game have at least all 3 ascendancies, otherwise it just wouldn't make sense. The next one is uniques and chase uniques, and just getting us a divine sync in terms of giving us good uniques and chase unique items. And right now the current state of uniques is pretty bad. Uniques are not really that interesting, at least 90% of them aren't, and there's only a few chase uniques. It would be good to get some more in the game, so I would like more sort of build defining uniques in the game, and I think they're going to give us that. Like with every update, they do end up giving us new uniques, but this update has been longer than usual, so I do expect to have a whole bunch of new uniques. Usually they'll have somewhere between 9-10 new uniques. I think that's gonna have double the amount this time. I'm hoping they'll have stuff around chase items, and I am also hoping that they go back and look at the current unique set pool and try and buff those in some sort of way. This is obviously important because we need something to sink divine orbs into, right? So if we get uniques that potentially are really good, if they have high rolls and that sort of stuff, then that could end up being the divine sink that this game really desperately needs. The economy is pretty bad, especially when it gets like a month or a couple of weeks after the leagues. And I do actually think one of the things here that they can take for Path of Exile 1 is the idea of having these very interesting uniques that have different layers of roles to them. So now, for example, in the Mirage League that they've just launched in Path of Exile 1, there is a belt that gives you a shrine buff, but it can roll between 1 and 2 shrine buffs, and there's different types, so it'll give you 1 offensive and 1 defensive, and there's some really strong combinations, and that sort of lets players get more interested in these unique items, where more items like that are super cool in the game, especially with the unique stuff. And I think that's what they need to do, and that's what they should lean towards in terms of making some of these uniques and these new uniques very interesting. And last but not least, I think this is a bit of an obvious one as well. I think there's going to be new Uber Pinnacle Bosses content that we're going to have, and I think we're going to have multiple. They have spent so much time on the end game. I'm hoping that after Arbiter there's another end game boss, and maybe there's going to be a few others. Now I know some people are also suggesting that potentially could have Guardians. I think that would be a good idea that they could take from Path of Exile 1, get some Guardians in these maps rather than relying just on the RNG of the Infinite Atlas. If they do end up keeping it that way, with the citadels being random spawns and sometimes being super unlucky, I think having these specific areas with like specific Guardians that can drop these fragments that help us get to the bosses is a better way, and they could definitely take that from Path of Exile 1. So yeah, that's everything that I think will be coming in this update. Hopefully at least some of those, if not most of those, are correct. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, what you guys are looking forward to in the update, and what your predictions are. Let me know. Thanks for watching the video. Comment down below.